Hi guys, Arthur here from Homeowner DIY. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to maintain a barbecue. Now, besides maintaining a barbecue, I'm also going to touch on if you want to make the transition from propane to natural gas. So you can't just disconnect your propane and plug in natural gas, but we will get into that a little bit later on. But when it comes to maintaining a barbecue, grease buildup is the single biggest thing that you need to watch out for. If you have a lot of grease buildup, the grease can catch on fire, burn your food, or you can run into other problems. So with that in mind, what we'll do now is we'll look at our barbecue and what we need to do to maintain it. Okay, so the first thing for maintenance is having a cover. So this is a very basic cover, but this is going to protect your barbecue from rust, from UV rays, and everything else. These covers aren't expensive, but it's definitely a must-have when it comes to barbecue maintenance. So this barbecue is a 3-burner. It has the 3 burners. This is for propane, so what we'll do now is we'll go over the parts of the barbecue. Alright, so starting from the bottom here, so there's the door. We have a propane tank here. So the propane here, this has a regulator on it, and then it has the attachment. So if you were going to switch from natural gas, you would be taking this hose out, and in kits they will have a quick disconnect for the most part, and then you're also gonna have to change the orifices when we get to it. But for everything down here, we have a gauge. I just got this tank last week, so it says it's full here, but it will have a gauge, and they go by the weight of the tank because it's liquid propane under pressure. Over here we have a catch for grease, so the bottom is all sloped in towards the grease pan here. So I'd say once a year, maybe clean out the grease pan. Just don't let it accumulate for long periods of time. All right, so for those of you that are considering to make the change from propane here to natural gas, first thing is this hose cannot be the same. This has a regulator on it for propane, so you have to change it to a quick disconnect. Now the one other thing is, so for this barbecue we have a burner here, so you see the set screw here, we have a burner, set screw there. So that is where the orifice is. The orifice will allow a certain amount of gas to go through. Now, because propane and natural gas, first of all, there's a BTU difference between propane and natural gas. And another thing is propane, which is here, is liquid under pressure. So it's going to be a different orifice size. You cannot use the same orifice between propane and natural gas. The natural gas orifice, I believe, is bigger because you need more gas to go through. So that is one other thing that you need to keep in mind. But if for my situation here, I'm just going to keep it to propane because I don't have a natural gas hookup outside the house. So this is our grilling surface here. So like I said, we have 3 burners. We have the couple grills, and then we have, I guess, a warming rack, if you will. But these grills here, you're gonna have to clean them, I'd say, every year. Again, it depends on how often you barbecue and what you barbecue as well. And then for the sides, give those a wipe down. I do this twice a year, at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season. But what we'll do now is we'll do material and tools for our barbecue maintenance. Alright, so this is our material and tools list. So for material, sponges, I would say have 3 or 4 on hand. Degreaser, dish soap, paper towel. For tools, safety glasses. So this is a brush. We're not really interested in the worn out here, but we want the scraper here. So have a brush with a scraping end. If you do not have a brush with a scraping end, just get a scraper. We have a regular brush, and then latex gloves because we're going to be dealing with heavy solvents. And last but not least, a hose for water because we need to rinse things down. If you don't have a hose, or if it's not practical, Use a spray bottle or a watering can, but you're going to need to have water. This is our material and tools list for this job, so let's get started. Alright, so for cleaning the grill up here, I have two types of brushes. This one is worn out, and then this is a brand new one. Now, one thing about these types of brushes, these are very common brushes, but you have to be careful because these metal bristles, they will fall apart from the brush and you can lose them onto the grill. I've seen it happen, I've heard it happen, so be very careful with these types of brushes. This one has now ran out his life, so I'm going to use this one for when I start grilling. So when you clean your grill, go across and then go back and forth. I would say don't use any type of cleaners or anything like that unless you're going to do an entire proper cleaning of your grills like I'm going to do today. But keeping your grills relatively clean is going to be very important because once grease starts to build up, it's going to catch on fire. Alright, so the first thing before ever working on your barbecue, make sure that it's cold. Last thing you want to do is burn yourself. So put your gloves on because this will be covered in grease. As you can see here, this is absolutely filthy. So when you're going to clean these, I highly recommend don't do this in your tub, in a kitchen sink or anything like that. If you have to, then make sure that you put plenty of newspaper and paper towel to avoid this type of grease going down your drain, because this is going to be a nightmare for you down the road. And this is the same thing as cooking meats on your stove. That grease, you don't want it going down your kitchen drain. So I'm going to wash these off. I'm going to take my sponge and dish soap and I'm going to wash these off out on the lawn here. But make sure that it's the grease here, the buildup, that you don't send it down your plumbing drains. Alright, with the grills out of the way, so this particular model has these heat shields. Once again, these things should be cleaned off as well from grease buildup. Alright, so this is the inside of our barbecue. So our sparker is over here. And then we have 1, 2, 3 burners, and we have a gas rail on the back there. So as you can see is how everything is starting to build up in the very bottom, and the idea is supposed to go down into the drain, into the hole there. Now, one thing is, if you start to have a lot of buildup like over here of grease around the side, that can catch on fire, and that's going to start to burn your food if the grease catches on fire, and it's just not a good thing to have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this all out here, and then we're going to take our degreaser, and then we're going to go around the sides. And then once again, all the grease buildup, just start to scrape it away. Now, because this is grease, it's relatively soft. So this is the grease pan. Again, it's whatever makes it to the very bottom. I think a lot of grease will get stuck higher up. And then we still have buildup on the inside. So for the loose stuff, grab this off first. Because your degreaser is not going to penetrate when you have a lot sitting on top. Alright, so that is just a very rough cleaning. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean off the heat shields here. I'm going to clean off my grills first with dish soap and my sponge. Once that's all done, I'm going to go ahead and then start to address this. But before I go and start wiping off the shields and the grills, I'm going to take my degreaser and just give it some time to sit to break up the grease, because there's a lot of grease here and it's going to take a while. Alright, so I'll spray the upper pan as well, and spray the top and let gravity bring the degreaser down to the bottom. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and clean this other stuff and then we'll come back once I'm done. Alright, so now we're going to do our wipe down with our degreaser. So I've sprayed this multiple times, but what I would suggest is go with the degreaser. Wear safety glasses because this stuff is pretty powerful. So spray it down, and if you're going to use a sponge, I'm going to use a sponge and paper towels. If you use a sponge like this, you're going to get rid of it because it's just going to be coated in grease. But go over everything first, wipe it down, and then go back over with paper towel to clean off the residue and everything else. Because chances are you're going to need more than one sponge because this grease is so thick. But what I'll do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'll clean off the top of the lid here. Okay, starting out with the lid, give it degreaser, let it sit, and then start to scrub. Give it more degreaser and scrub again. But this is going to be something purely of patience, depending on the level that you want to get and the variables of how often you use your barbecue and what you barbecue. That is something that you're going to have to figure out for yourself. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution to this problem. Alright, so we're going to now move on to the lower part here. So once again, spray it. Alright, so I've cleaned all the way around. It's purely dependent on how far you want to go with this. What I would suggest is put on the degreaser, scrub, put on the degreaser, scrub, rinse and repeat until you get to the level that you want. So this should all be like a chrome type of color that you see at the bottom, but there's still more grease on it. I'm not going to go so far, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe everything down, and then we need to address everything in the very bottom. Alright, so I'm going to spray the bottom pan here, and then I'm going to spray the other pan here. So I'm going to give this a little bit of time for the degreaser to soak in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the barbecue, and now I'm going to wipe down with some water and paper towel. Okay, so I've done my thorough cleaning with the degreaser. So I'm gonna spray it down, spray everything out. I've taken out the propane tank. I'm going to clean everything out, and once everything has been sprayed down, we'll take a look to see if there's anything more that needs to be done. Alright, so I've rinsed everything out. Now you can feel free to do more or less if you want. You can see how we have nice clear color here. Here's back to bare metal. Here we still have the amount of grease still on the back. So what you're gonna do now is look at your burners. Do your burners look like they're in good shape? These things will burn out with time. Even my heat shields are starting to rot away, but what I'm going to do is I'll clean this up a little bit more, and then the couple pans, I'll clean those out too, and when we're ready to put everything back together, that's when we'll come back. Okay, so the very last thing that I'm going to do before I put everything back together is take some dish soap and just do a wipe down to get the grease or anything else that is still left on the barbecue. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put in the heat shield. So these are the heat shields here. I would say the best thing to do is just randomly put them in. If you can, remember, don't put them in the same spot because you're not going to use everything in the same place. They're not going to wear out evenly unless if you're putting them all in the same place. So we have two here. So you see the crack here, you see this here. So that is going to start to change the way that the flame moves. Now in this case, I think it's better to put the crack sections on the side. But take note, because that means these shields are starting to wear out. So we have our shields back in place. Next thing we're going to do, we'll put our grills back. So our grills are back in place. Next, the top bracket will go back in place. So this was all black before, but you can see the color is coming back. So this just sits on top. Just like that. Alright, so with the top, everything here back in, I'm going to put on the bottom catch pans. And once those are in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the propane back on. And then we are going to start the barbecue. Alright, so with our gas hooked up, we'll open the tank. We'll close the lid. Now the left side here is for starting, so I'll turn 2 on. Now allow the barbecue to warm up a little bit, and that's going to boil off. It's going to evaporate any water that's still left in the barbecue. Alright, so the barbecue is going. Now, one thing that we're also testing here is to make sure everything actually works. Because if the barbecue isn't working, something got too wet, it broke off, who knows what would have happened. But I'm going to get the temperature up to 200 degrees Celsius or 400 degrees. That is my warm-up temperature. And we're going to make sure that any grease, water, degreaser, anything that was on the barbecue, any soap, is boiled off, so everything is sterile and it's ready to go for next time. Alright guys, so that concludes this job. So besides cleaning out your barbecue to make it look better and to remove the grease, also this is a chance to do an inspection. Is things starting to rot away, corrode? Does anything need to be addressed? Your burners will eventually have to be replaced, as well as your grill. So this is something to keep in mind. Besides cleaning out your barbecue for grease buildup. Now, like I said before, grease will catch on fire, and this will ruin your barbecue in terms of food. If you're cooking something and then it burns on the outside and it's raw on the inside. The other thing is safety. A grease fire can be out of control and you can potentially set something else on fire, so that's something else that you need to be aware of. The time on this job. For me specifically, to clean the barbecue, for my barbecue here, this will be dependent on how often you barbecue, how often you clean, how big is your barbecue, and other factors. But for me, the time was 3 hours. The cost of this job. The sponges, the soap, the degreaser, the gloves, I would say the cost here was about $15. Now, like I said, for sponges, be prepared to throw these things out because they will get mangled. Besides that, they'll be completely contaminated and they're not usable anymore. And I don't think you want to use something that's contaminated with grease on anything else. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I hope the information that I've given you here is going to help you to maintain your barbecue so you'll have a better grilling experience. Guys, till next time, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next project.